Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're looking right past the clothing racks to reveal a completely counterintuitive operations engine hiding beneath one of the world's most famous brands. You know the feeling. When you walk into a Zara store, you experience what honestly feels a bit like magic. The absolute newest trends just seemingly appearing out of thin air. But right behind that magic is a ruthless, highly disciplined machine. So, let's deconstruct exactly how it works.
It really starts with a central mystery. How exactly did Amancio Ortega, who was just a teenager working as a delivery boy in the rainy Galician port city of A Coruña back in the 1960s, build a business generating nearly 40 billion euros by early 2026? Well, he didn't do it by being some visionary fashion designer. Actually, he did it by making a really simple structural observation about where value and risk actually live in the clothing trade. He noticed that the money and the danger lived in the distance between the workshop and the customer.
And, this observation created the Trojan horse of this entire business model. Most competitors, and honestly most consumers, only ever see the visible layer, trendy clothes and accessible prices. They just assume the company is simply really good at copying the runway quickly. But that's just a symptom. The invisible layer is the actual product here. It's an incredibly sophisticated operations system relying on high-speed data, centralized logistics, and a super tightly controlled supply chain. You could literally change the buttons or the silhouette of the clothes, and the engine underneath stays exactly the same.
To truly get how this operates, we're going to take this business model apart on the workbench. First, we'll look at the machine behind the clothes. Then, we'll break down their 4 interlocking moves: controlling the chain, the proximity bet, engineered scarcity, and real-time listening. And finally, we'll examine the very real threats to the empire.
All right, let's dive right into part 1, the machine behind the clothes.
Which brings us to move 1, control the chain.
The absolute foundation of this machine is that the entire system is designed to fundamentally optimize for one specific variable above all others: time. And to control that time, the company deliberately defied literally every MBA textbook from the 1990s. While the rest of the industry was super busy outsourcing everything to the lowest cost factory across the globe to become asset light, they did the exact opposite. They practiced what we call integration for velocity. By keeping crucial steps like design, prototyping, fabric cutting, and a massive centralized logistics spine in-house, primarily in Arteixo, Spain, they weren't just buying real estate. They were buying absolute control of their own clock. Because think about it, when you outsource everything, you are just waiting in a supplier's queue behind a bunch of other brands. But when you own the rhythm-setting steps, you never wait. You control the pace of the handoffs. And in a business entirely defined by speed, controlling the clock is the whole game.
Okay, let's look at move 2, the proximity bet. Because they control the chain, they were able to make this brilliant, totally counterintuitive decision about exactly where these clothes should be sewn. Now, there's a massive misconception out there that all of their clothes are made locally. They actually aren't. They segment their supply chain based entirely on demand volatility. About 40% of their goods, the stable basics like your plain white t-shirts, are made far away where labor is cheap because those items just don't require speed. But the volatile, highly fashion-sensitive 60%, that is sewn super close to home in a ring of supply spanning Spain, Portugal, Morocco, and Turkey. They actively pay a premium in labor costs for this 60% just to keep it close.
And looking at the numbers reveals exactly why that proximity premium is actually a massive bargain. In the traditional far and cheap model, sure, the unit cost is low, but the lead time is literally months, which means you're guessing what people will want half a year from now. And when you guess wrong, your markdown risk is just massive. By choosing the near and fast model, yeah, you accept a higher unit cost, but your lead time drops to weeks. This practically eliminates the massive financial drain of forecasting errors. It turns out, paying more to be fast is actually way cheaper than paying less to be slow, simply because you aren't burying all your margins in the clearance bin.
Moving on to the third gear here, move 3, engineered scarcity.
So we've established the incredible speed, but what actually happens when these rapidly produced garments hit the store floor? Well, you get structural scarcity. If you've ever shopped there, hesitated on a nice jacket, and then come back 3 days later to find it completely gone, you have absolutely felt this. That frustrating empty shelf is not a supply chain failure, it is a genius feature. Because they produce in small batches and ship in highly limited quantities, they literally manufacture urgency. You learn really quickly that if you don't buy it right now at full price, you're going to miss out. It borrows a psychological mechanism straight from luxury brands, shifting your mindset from, maybe later on sale to, I need this right now at full price.
And this structural scarcity is sustained by totally replacing traditional seasons with constant rapid drops. The old seasonal model relies on a few large, incredibly risky collections per year. If a brand misses the mark on a spring collection, they suffer for months. The drops model, however, relies on twice-weekly deliveries of fresh inventory. This relentless cadence of newness essentially acts as a traditional advertising budget. They don't need to spend heavily on billboards or commercials because the continuously changing store itself pulls customers in. The product flow literally is the marketing.
Next up, move 4, real-time listening.
But look, raw speed without direction is just a car crash waiting to happen, right? That's where this incredible feedback loop comes in, keeping this insanely fast machine pointed in exactly the right direction. It starts with treating the physical store not just as a place to sell things, but as a live data sensor. Store managers are actively capturing live qualitative data, not just what sold, but what customers asked for or what they tried on and immediately rejected. That data travels through a highly advanced data spine, utilizing item-level RFID tracking, straight back to the commercial teams in Spain. In-season designers immediately adapt to that signal, and because of that proximate supply chain we talked about, the factory can ship that brand new, highly desired item back to the store in just 2 weeks. They're designing against the present they can actually observe rather than a future they have to guess.
So, what's the ultimate result of all these gears turning in perfect sync? 12. While standard apparel competitors turn their inventory maybe 3 or 4 times a year, this system turns its inventory a staggering 12 times. This means the exact same sales are supported by a fraction of the inventory, freeing up a literal mountain of capital and almost entirely eliminating stale stock.
This is absolutely crucial. This isn't just a random checklist of good ideas. It is a self-funding loop. Control enables the proximity bet. Proximity buys you the speed. The speed makes deliberate scarcity profitable because you can instantly fill the empty shelf with something new. And those high full-price margins generated by the scarcity, they pay for the expensive control and proximity you bought in the very first place. This is exactly why competitors can't just copy one part of the model. If you just buy the fast logistics but don't have the scarcity to protect your margins, the cost will literally crush you. You have to build the whole machine.
But hey, no empire is invincible. Let's look at Section 6, Threats to the Empire.
The sharpest threat to this model today actually comes from a totally different playbook, Chinese ultra-fast fashion. Notice exactly where the battle lines are drawn here. The traditional moat was built on proximity, physical stores acting as sensors, and 2-week cycles. But the ultra-fast threat, they achieve extreme responsiveness without the expensive proximity bet. By using an asset-light, purely digital, on-demand model with a super dense network of distant suppliers, they are hitting 10-day cycles. They are attacking the core premise that being physically near is the only way to be fast.
Yet, there's an even deeper contradiction facing this model, and it's tied to impending global sustainability regulations. Think about it. The entire genius of this operations loop is lowering the friction between a customer's fleeting desire and a completed purchase. It is fundamentally an engine optimized for volume and velocity. So the question we have to leave you with is this. As regulators and consumers increasingly push for durability, fewer purchases, and less waste, can an operational machine built entirely to sell more clothes, faster, actually adapt to a world demanding we consume less?